All right, so you sent over some fascinating material for our deep dive today. So on the 5-second rule, I have to admit, the name alone, well, it piqued my curiosity. We've got excerpts from Mel Robbins' book. It's called The 5-Second Rule. Transform your life, work, and confidence with everyday courage. And judging by the stack of Amazon reviews, it seems like a lot of people are buzzing about this. So let's unpack this rule, see how it works, and most importantly, figure out why it should matter to you. So the basic premise is pretty straightforward. Anytime you feel that urge to act, but you hesitate, you simply count down from 5 to 1, and then MUVE. It all sounds too simple, right? And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, what's intriguing is that simplicity. It might actually be tapping into something quite profound about how our brains work.
Okay, all ears. Tell me more.
Well, think about it. How often do you hesitate before doing something, even if you know it's good for you? Like hitting the gym after work or speaking up in a meeting.
All the time. It's like my brain. It throws up these roadblocks.
Exactly. That hesitation, it triggers what's known as the fight or flight response. Our brains, they're wired for survival. They see that hesitation as potential danger, and they try to protect us by stopping us in our tracks.
So is that 5-second countdown, is it like a hack for our brains?
You could say that the countdown, it interrupts that automatic fear response. It gives you a window to override those hesitant impulses and actually take action.
That makes sense. But why 5 seconds specifically? Is there something magical about that number?
It's less about the specific number and more about creating a small window of opportunity. It takes about 5 seconds for that initial fear response to kick in. And for our prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning and decision-making, to start overthinking things, the countdown acts as a bridge, helping you move from intention to action before those mental breaks get applied.
Speaking of overcoming hesitation, the origin of this rule is quite interesting, isn't it? Mel Robbins. She reportedly invented this during a pretty tough time in her life. She was facing anxiety and financial struggles. She was feeling completely stuck. Then this 5-second countdown idea. It popped into her head. I have to admit, it does feel relatable. We've all been there, feeling like we're spinning our wheels. So she tried the countdown, and it actually worked. It helped her break out of that rut and take action. She credits this rule with helping her turn her entire life around. And it looks like her experience, it has resonated with a lot of people. I mean, the book's popularity, it speaks for itself.
It's true. The book has sold millions of copies, and it's garnered countless positive reviews. Clearly, this rule has struck a chord, which suggests there's something powerful at play here. But let's delve a little deeper into the science behind it. Why does this seemingly simple countdown seem to work for so many? So we've talked about the 5-second rule as this potential hack for our brains, but let's look at the why. What's the science behind it? One key factor is habit formation. Our brains, they're wired to favor the familiar, the comfortable, even if those patterns aren't serving us well. It's all about conserving energy and minimizing risk.
So you're saying our brains, they're basically hardwired for procrastination.
In a way, yes. When we hesitate before taking action, we're giving our brains time to default to those ingrained habits, those comfortable patterns of avoidance. We start overthinking, rationalizing, and ultimately talking ourselves out of doing the very things we know we should be doing.
It's like that inner voice saying, hey, I'll do it tomorrow, or maybe I'm not ready yet.
Exactly. But the 5-second rule, it throws a wrench into those well-worn neural pathways by counting down and then immediately acting. You're essentially short-circuiting that hesitation loop. You're not giving your brain time to generate excuses or fall back into old patterns.
It's about seizing that tiny window of opportunity before those doubts take over.
Precisely. And the more you use the rule, the more you reinforce those neural pathways associated with action taking, making it easier to overcome hesitation in the future.
That makes sense. Like building a muscle, but for decisiveness.
But I'm also curious about the limitations of this rule. I mean, it can't possibly solve every problem.
Right. But what about situations
that require more careful planning and consideration?
You're right. The 5-second rule, it isn't a magic bullet. It's a tool. And like any tool, it has its specific uses. It's great for overcoming procrastination and pushing past those initial moments of hesitation. But it's not a substitute for thoughtful planning or addressing deeper underlying issues. So it's not about blindly rushing into every decision. It's more about recognizing those moments where hesitation is holding you back from taking positive action.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between thoughtful deliberation and decisive action.
And as we saw in those Amazon reviews, not everyone finds it effective. Some people might need more than a simple countdown to address deeply ingrained habits or underlying fears.
Absolutely. It's important to be realistic and recognize that this rule might not be a cure-all. For everyone, individual experiences can vary, and it's always wise to seek professional guidance if you're struggling with something significant.
Right. It's about using this tool responsibly and knowing when you might need additional support. But, what I find really compelling are those stories of people who have used this rule to create tangible, positive changes in their lives, like that reviewer who used it to break a 40-year nail-biting habit. It makes you wonder what's possible when we break free
From those patterns
of hesitation.
It's those stories of personal transformation that highlight the potential power of this simple technique. It's not just a theory, it's something that people are using to actually improve their lives.
So we've covered the what, the why, and the potential impact of this 5-second rule. We've explored the science behind it, looked at some potential benefits, and even touched on some of the limitations. But I want to shift gears a bit and make this more personal. What resonates most with you about this concept? Have any thoughts popped up on how you might be able to apply this rule in your own life?
What I find particularly intriguing is the emphasis on action. It's easy to get caught up in planning, analyzing, waiting for the perfect moment. But sometimes the most effective way to move forward is to simply start. And this rule gives you a tangible tool for doing just that.
I think
the idea
of using it to interrupt negative self-talk is incredibly powerful. We all have that inner critic that can sabotage our efforts. But by consciously choosing to interrupt those thoughts, with action, we can shift our mindset and create positive momentum. That's a great point. It's like taking back control of our thoughts and behaviors. Instead of letting those doubts dictate our actions, we're choosing to act despite them. I think the simplicity of this rule is a huge advantage. It's something you could do anytime, anywhere, without needing any special tools or resources. It's accessible to everyone. But, before we get too carried away with the possibilities, I think it's important to acknowledge the potential challenges of implementing this rule. Change is rarely easy, even with a handy 5-second countdown. So let's talk about some of the roadblocks you might encounter when you actually try to put this rule into practice. And more importantly, let's brainstorm some strategies for overcoming those obstacles and making this rule work.
sounds like a plan. Let's dive into the practicalities.
So you're ready to give this 5-second rule a shot, but
Sure.
you're also anticipating some bumps along the way.
That's smart. Even with a tool this simple, change, it doesn't always come easy. What are some of those potential roadblocks we should be prepared for? Well, one common obstacle is simply forgetting to use the rule in the first place. It seems obvious, but in the heat of the moment, when that hesitation hits, it's easy to forget all about the countdown.
Oh, yeah. I can totally see that happen. You should count down, but your mind, it's already racing, coming up with reasons to delay.
Exactly. So how do you combat that? Visual reminders can be surprisingly effective. Think sticky notes with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on your desk. A bracelet that triggers the thought. Even a recurring alarm on your phone labeled time to move.
Oh, I love those ideas. It's like giving yourself those little nudges throughout the day. But even with reminders, sometimes the bigger hurdle is actually trusting that this rule can work for you. And it does sound almost too simple, especially if you've tried other more complex approaches in the past.
That's where those personal stories and testimonials can be so powerful when you see how this simple technique has helped others achieve remarkable things. It can spark a sense of possibility and boost your own belief in the process. And remember, it's not just some random self-help gimmick. We talked about the neurological basis for this, the 5-second countdown. It really does interrupt that automatic fear response and gives you a window to choose action.
Right. It's leveraging the way our brains are wired.
It's to go for us
Instead of against us. But okay, let's say you've got the reminder set, you're feeling motivated, you trust the process. The next challenge is actually sticking with it. It's one thing to use it a few times, but turning it into a truly ingrained habit, it takes effort. Any tips for staying consistent?
Tracking your progress can be incredibly helpful. Keep a journal, use a habit tracking app, or simply mark a calendar each day you use the rule successfully. Seeing those consistent check marks can be surprisingly motivating. And don't underestimate the power of accountability. Share your goal with a friend, a family member, someone who can cheer you on and gently remind you to use the rule when you need it.
It's like having your own personal 5-second rule cheerleader. I love it. Okay, so we've got some strategies for those common roadblocks, but now let's bring this home. How can you actually start applying the 5-second rule in your own life? Starting today, remember that reviewer who used it. And to break a 40-year nail-biting habit, what's one ingrained habit you could try tackling with this 5-second countdown?
It really could be anything. Hitting snooze every morning, procrastinating on a work project, avoiding that difficult conversation you need to have. The key is to identify that moment of hesitation, that point where you feel the urge to act. But start second-guessing yourself. That's your cue to start counting. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then take the action, no matter how small. It's about proving to yourself that you have the power to choose action over hesitation.
As you rack up those small wins, you start building momentum. Suddenly, those bigger goals and aspirations, they seem more attainable. So there you have it, the 5-second rule. A deceptively simple tool, but one that has the potential to unlock some pretty incredible changes. We've explored the origins, the science behind it, the potential benefits, and even how to overcome some of the common challenges. But as we've said before, knowledge is only truly valuable when we put it into practice.
So take this information, experiment with the 5-second rule, and see what changes you can create. Maybe it's finally tackling that project you've been putting off, starting that new exercise routine, or simply being more present in your daily interactions. Think of this as your invitation to step outside your comfort zone and embrace the power of everyday courage. Who knows what you might achieve with just 5 little seconds of